It was one of those quiet autumn mornings when the air feels heavy but calm, the kind of morning that smells like rain and fallen leaves. I remember holding my daughter's small hand as we walked toward her kindergarten. She was humming a little tune, something she'd probably heard in one of her cartoons, her tiny boots crunching through the orange leaves that had gathered by the sidewalk. Her laughter made everything around us seem softer. For a few minutes, I forgot about deadlines, emails, and the small exhaustion that builds up in a parent's life. She squeezed my hand, pointed at a flock of pigeons taking flight, and said, "Look, Daddy, they're dancing." I smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Go be kind today." That's what I always told her. She nodded seriously, like a promise she took to heart every morning. After leaving her at the kindergarten gates, I usually went straight to work. But that morning, I don't know why. Maybe it was the crisp air, maybe just a restless thought. I decided to take a small detour. The park wasn't far, a few minutes walk, and I thought a short stroll would clear my head before the noise of the office. The park was almost empty. Just a few old men feeding birds and a woman jogging with headphones. The trees were golden, their branches swaying in the breeze. I remember standing near the stone staircase that led to the central fountain. That's when I saw them. Two cats, one white, one gray, huddled together at the bottom of the steps. At first, I thought they were just resting, maybe cold. But then I noticed something was terribly wrong. Their little bodies trembled, their mouths opened slightly, froth dripping from their lips. I froze. For a moment, I didn't even breathe. There was a piece of raw meat next to them, pink, oddly out of place among the leaves. And in that instant, I understood. Poison. A wave of nausea hit me. I couldn't grasp it, how someone could do this. These were small, defenseless animals, probably stray cats trying to survive the cold. My heart started racing. I knelt beside them carefully. Their eyes were dull, barely open, but when I reached out my hand, the gray one tried to lift her head weakly. It made a sound, faint, broken, a tiny cry for help. That was enough. I took off my jacket, wrapped them gently inside, and pressed them close to my chest. I could feel their hearts, faint but still beating. I didn't think, I just ran. I ran like I hadn't run in years. The streets blurred. My breath came in short, desperate bursts. I remember the way people stared as I passed. A man in a shirt and tie, coat clutched around something, his face pale with panic. The veterinary clinic wasn't far, about a 10-minute walk, but in that moment, it felt like miles. Every second counted. I could feel one of the cats twitching weakly inside my jacket. I whispered, "Hold on, please, just a little longer. You're going to make it." When I burst through the clinic doors, the nurse behind the desk froze for a second. I laid my jacket gently on the counter. "Please," I managed to say, "they've been poisoned." She didn't waste time asking questions. Within seconds, two veterinarians rushed in. They lifted the kittens, one white, one gray, onto a metal table, their movements urgent but careful. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. "Do you know what they ingested?" one of them asked quickly. "There was a piece of raw meat beside them," I said, my voice shaking. They were foaming at the mouth. They nodded grimly and began working. Tubes, injections, small instruments. It all blurred together. I stood there, helpless, watching. I wanted to do something, anything, but all I could do was clench my fists and silently pray. One of the nurses looked at me and said softly, "You did the right thing bringing them here. Most people wouldn't have stopped." Her words hit me harder than she knew, because deep down I knew that was true. Most people would have walked by, maybe taken a picture, maybe shaken in heads and kept going. For a long time, I just stood there, watching those tiny bodies fight. The white one's breathing was shallow, but steadying. The gray one, smaller and frailer, wasn't responding as well. They put both on IV fluids and told me they'd do everything they could. Hours passed. I called my office, told them I couldn't come in. I didn't even explain why. How do you explain something like this? Around noon, the vet came to talk to me. She said, "They're stable, but it's early. We'll need to monitor them through the night. You did a good thing today." I nodded, though my throat was tight. It didn't feel like a good thing. It felt like a small act against something cruel, something senseless. Before leaving, I asked if I could see them again. She let me step inside the treatment room. They looked so fragile, tiny creatures hooked up to tubes, their fur still damp from the morning's dew and the IV alcohol wipes. I touched the edge of their blankets and whispered, "You're safe now." That's when something inside me shifted. I thought of my daughter, how she smiled every time she saw a cat, how she'd crouch to pet the strays near our street. She'd once told me, "Daddy, cats understand when you love them." Maybe that's why I couldn't just walk away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their small faces, the trembling, the pleading eyes. The image wouldn't leave me. So the next morning, I went to the police. I told them everything, the time, the location, the meet, every detail I could recall. The officer on duty took notes and promised they'd investigate. He said, "We've had similar reports before. You may have just helped us stop whoever's behind this." The thought chilled me, that this wasn't the first time. Days turned into a week. The vet called me often with updates. The white cat was improving faster. The gray one was slower to recover, but holding on. Every afternoon, I stopped by their cages, talking softly, watching as they started to eat again, move again, breathe normally. They started to trust me. I could see it in their eyes. The gray one especially would lift her head when she heard my voice. It's strange how quickly love can grow in silence.
It was nearly 2 weeks later when I got the call from the police. The officer's voice was calm, but there was something heavy in his tone. "We found him," he said, "the man responsible." I remember standing still for a long time after hanging up. I had imagined a cruel person, someone heartless, maybe vindictive. But when the report came out, the truth felt different. Sadder somehow. It turned out to be a man in his late 50s, living alone near the park. A former butcher, they said. He had been suffering from untreated mental illness, talking about cleansing the neighborhood of strays. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, pity, or disbelief. Mostly, I just felt an ache for how broken the world could be sometimes. That evening, I went back to the clinic. The white and gray cats were awake, alert and stronger. The vet smiled when she saw me. "They're going to make it," she said. "You saved them." I sat beside their cages for a while. The gray one, smaller, quieter, pressed her paw against the glass when she saw me. The white one meowed softly, curling up beside her. Something about them reminded me of my daughter. Fragile, innocent, but fighting to live in a world that isn't always kind. I asked the vet what would happen next. "Well," she said, "once they're cleared, we'll try to find them a home, but it might take a while. Not everyone adopts adult strays." I smiled. "They already have a home," I said. Bringing them home was one of the most meaningful moments of my life. My daughter, when she saw them, gasped in wonder. "Daddy, they're beautiful," she said, kneeling beside the carrier. "They've been through a lot," I told her softly. "We have to be gentle." She nodded seriously, as if accepting a sacred duty. The white one climbed out first, cautious but curious. The gray one followed slowly, still a little weak, her steps wobbly. Within minutes, both had found the warmest corner of our living room and curled up together. My daughter named them Luna and Ash. From that day on, they became part of our family. Every morning before school, she'd whisper goodbye to them. Every evening, she'd read them her picture books, convinced they were listening. And maybe they were. Their eyes always followed her, calm and content. Weeks passed, and their fur regained its shine. Their eyes, once dull and frightened, now glowed with trust. Sometimes, when I'd come home from work, Luna would jump onto my lap, while Ash nestled near my daughter. I often found myself thinking about that day in the park. The cold stone steps, the silence, the helplessness, and how easily I could have walked past. How easily we all walk past. Sometimes I wonder what made me stop that morning. Maybe it was my daughter's voice still echoing in my head. Be kind today. Maybe it was just luck, or instinct, or something larger than that. But now when I watch Luna and Ash sleeping peacefully, their small chests rising and falling in rhythm, I know that every choice, even the smallest one, matters. We live in a world where cruelty can hide in plain sight, but kindness can too. And it only takes one moment of courage, one decision not to look away, to tip the balance towards something good. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Kindness isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up when it would be easier not to. It's about caring for the voiceless, the forgotten, and the small lives that depend on our humanity. That morning in the park changed me. It reminded me that empathy isn't weakness, it's strength. Because when you choose compassion, you don't just save another life, you save a part of your own.